Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm doing okay, considering I still have my cough. It's annoying the pants out of me, to be really honest. But we're here, and I have had a very tense and very exciting day. If you are a follower of any sport of any kind, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was the Wimbledon men's final today. Novak Djokovic against Roger Federer, and it was a thriller, to say the least. Novak Djokovic coming through to win it in the fifth set on a tiebreak. It was, I think they said it was the longest ever men's final, something like that. But yes, it was extraordinary. I watched that, and I was also flitting between that and the Men's Cricket World Cup as well, England versus New Zealand, which also turned out to be a thriller. That match going the distance, not just going the distance, but scores were tied at the end of the match. And so what they do when the scores are tied is that both sides have to bat. They have to face 6 balls each, and the team with the most runs wins. But what happened was, guess what? Scores were tied again. And so it basically came down to the number of balls hit to the boundary. And England had hit more balls to the boundary than New Zealand, so England won the World Cup on that basis. But there was pretty much nothing between the two teams. It was amazing. I've been watching cricket for probably about 38 years, and I've been playing cricket for 30 of those years. And it's I have to say, it's probably the most incredible game of cricket I've ever watched in my life. It was extraordinary. Plus the tennis. Plus, if you follow the Formula One motor racing, Lewis Hamilton won the British Grand Prix at Silverstone and became the only driver to win 6 times at Silverstone. So, yeah, it was a historical day for all sorts of reasons. Records broken left, right, and centre. As you can tell, excuse me, I still have my cough. My voice is holding up a lot better than it has in the last couple of weeks. But as you will notice, I have not put out any videos for a wee while. And the reason being is that I've either I've just been too unwell, basically, to be able to make any videos. And I have tried, trust me, but it's just like, it's taken me like 12 or 13 takes to get a video done. And not much good. So there we are. Hello and welcome. And we have 11 people here. It would be nice if we could break a record today. That's just dropped down to 10 as I say that. I think our record stands at 28, I think. So it'd be nice if we could beat that today, but I don't know whether we will or not, because I know that there are all sorts of things going on with former Hurricane Barry, now downgraded to Tropical Storm Barry, who is progressing his way across the southern states of the United States of America. Currently, I think he has passed through the Louisiana area, or is passing through. I've been watching that with a lot of interest as well. Yes, the Kiwis. I wouldn't say the Kiwis blew it, Greg. I would say there was not a whole lot between England and the New Zealanders. Both teams pushed each other relentlessly, to be honest. In that match, it was amazing, totally amazing. If you're not into cricket and you you're able to find the highlights to that match on YouTube, which I'm sure there will be some. Even if you have no interest in cricket whatsoever, give it a watch because it was intense, to say the least. I am Scottish, but since England is a British team, I support them unless we are playing them, in which case I support Scotland. But that's how it is in football and rugby for me as well. So I support Scotland unless Scotland are not playing, in which case I support England or Wales, whichever it may be. Anyway, enough rambling from me. Let's see who we have in the chat. We have dropped down to 13, but we have Ken Moss, who is the first in the door with Hey Hey Hey. There's a song that has that as its chorus, I think. Thomas is here as well. He says, good morning to you, my friend. And Ken Moss says, oh no, I don't want my computer to catch a virus. That's hilarious. Yes, I don't pass on computer viruses. You'll be glad to know, I am sure. And Bob Studios says, I made it. Yes. Well done. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you are becoming a regular member of my little gathering here on a Sunday night. I love it when people start to turn up regularly. Speaking of regular people who attend every time, that would be Bobby Booth. He has attended pretty much every single live stream I have done, even back in the days when I was using Google Hangouts because I didn't have fast enough internet to use OBS or anything like that. So, and Greg, as I mentioned earlier, is here as well. So, awesome. So tonight, what are we talking about? I thought we would talk a little bit about mixed bus compression because it is much misunderstood. And there are various and many ways in which mixed bus compression gets used or gets applied. Tony Stringer is here. He says, I'm awake still. Good to see you, mate. Thank you for coming. There are various and many ways in which mixed bus compression gets used. Sometimes people apply it at the end of the mix. Some people put it on right at the start and then they mix through it. That's what I do. There are two plugins that are the very first plugins that I put on my mix to start with. One is a tape machine emulator that goes on my master bus and a compressor. And excuse me, I'm stifling my coughs because I don't want to cough as much as I can. And I'm finding it hard to hold them back. Anyway, so yes, the way I like to use mixed bus compression is to start with the compressor and the tape machine. Obviously, a tape machine will apply some compression because that's what tape does a little bit when you drive it a little bit. Then you will get a little bit of compression de facto because that's the way tape works. And then that goes into a compressor. And the thing with mixed bus compression is this is something where you are going for taste, you're going for tone, and you are going to pulling the mix together. Even if you haven't even started doing anything yet, you are using it to pull everything together. And that's how you use it throughout the mix. Now, I don't just set it and forget it. I set a rough ballpark where I want it to be and how much I want to do, which is usually just the tiniest amount of compression. And then as I go through the mix and as I'm adding EQ and compression, and de facto that adds gain, which means more gain is being summed to the mix bus, you're going to get a little bit of more compression, in which case you just need to regularly, periodically go and check your mix bus and make sure that you're not hammering that sucker because you don't want to do that as far as I'm concerned. Bob Studios says, can you show me how you configure your outboard converter to your Personas input outputs. What are you using? I'm not quite sure I understand your question. No, I'm not really sure what you mean by configure your outboard converter to your persona's output inputs. I have two interfaces that I use to do my live streams and to make my videos. And essentially my Studio 1824C, which is my main interface, the outputs of that go into my monitor station. And then one set of outputs from there goes to my speakers. Another set of outputs goes into these guys. And then the final set of outputs from the monitor station goes into my second interface, which is the Alesis IO2. And you guys are hearing the result of the Alesis IO2, basically. But yes, it's otherwise Presonus all the way. And Tony Gray is here. Good to see you. Bobby Booth says, I use a ratio of 2:1 fast attack and medium release with about 1 or 2 dB reduction. Okay, oh, for mixing. Bob Studios asks for mixing. Yes, I'm using the Studio 1824C as my main interface. So there you go. That's that, really. Okay, let's get into this. Give me 1 second. I'm just needing to check something. Yes, my CPU appears to be overheating at 72 degrees C. I don't know why that is, but it is. Don't understand why it's at 72. Okay, I just need to keep an eye on that. Okay, let's go into Studio One. We will go over to there. All right, so we are in Studio One, and I don't have any mixed bus compression on this at all. I've just tapped a little bit of EQ because I've been using this as this is my test song, by the way. When I'm testing new features in Studio One, this is the one that I use because it gives me a ton of virtual instruments, plus I've got some audio tracks as well. And this is what I use for testing. Okay, mixed bus compression. So I'll show you what I use, and we'll take it from there. So the first thing that I use, as I said, is the tape machine. And I'm going to open up my waves folder, and I'm going to bring in my J37 tape machine. So I use this guy. And I basically play the track a little bit, and then I turn up the input until we are beginning to get up towards 0 on here. Okay, let's just sort this track out for a second, because at the moment all we have is drums. And there we go. Okay, that will do. That will do. We are getting some input into the tape machine going on. That is all good. Okay, next thing we'll do is we'll go and get the fat channel. And we'll put the fat channel after it, and we'll go to the compressor, and we will use the Brit Comp. Now, this guy is not free. I will show you another alternative to setting up mixed bus compression, but I use this guy because this guy emulates an SSL bus compressor, and I like the sound of this. So I will have this set to slow attack 30, and then I'll set this release to 100 milliseconds. I have the ratio set at 2:1. And I'll leave the makeup gain down on 0 for now. And then what we will do is we'll turn this guy on first. Bring this down a little bit so you can see it a bit better. And then we'll just turn up the threshold until this guy starts moving. And that's all I want. I want the needle just to move. and we are good. And that's how I set up my mix bus compressor at the start of my mix. And then I, by and largely, leave it. I may add maybe just a smidge of makeup, but that's about it. I will leave it at that. And then as I go through the mix, I will check this periodically to make sure that all we're doing is just a smidge of compression and we're not like getting up towards 4. I'm aiming for like maybe 1 or 2 dB at the very most on the mix bus compressor. I'm not looking to slam this at all because the mix bus is the entire mix. So we're not wanting to do anything that really reduces the dynamic range at all. We're just basically wanting to use the compressor just to pull the mix together. And then I mix through that. And this is where I start my mix. Bit of tape and this guy as well. And then, as I say, I will periodically check both. So I'll occasionally pop this guy open and I'll see where this is at. And usually I can hear if this is starting to distort. If I'm starting to drive the tape too much, you can pretty much hear it. Now, I like a little bit of saturation coming from the tape, but not a lot. I only want it just to be a little hair of tape so that you know the tape is there. Because otherwise there's not really any point in it if you're not really hearing the tape. I want you to be able to barely notice the tape. I don't want it to kind of like suddenly be distorting massively or saturating a lot. I just want it to be just tapping 0 over here. And that really is enough for me. And occasionally if this light pops red once in a while, that's okay too, because it's not going to clip. And this light over here will always tell me if it's clipping anyway, which it shouldn't do because I play very, very safe. You'll notice that over here I have this set to K14. Actually, that should be set to K20. That's a bit naughty. I normally have my mix bus set to K20 on the Bobcat's K system, and that basically allows me 20 dB of headroom. Now, I'm never going to use up 20 dB of headroom, but this makes sure that I stay well away from 0 dB, and usually by the time I finish a mix and everything is done and the mix sounds exactly how I want it to sound, my mix ends up, peaking round about -6 dB. So I'm nowhere near 0. I don't get anywhere near to clipping. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what does that mean when I send a mix to a client? If I'm finished and it's peaking at -6 and they listen to it in the car, it's not going to sound very loud. Correct. It's not. It's not going to sound the same as something that they listen to commercially. So I don't want them to be deceived. And so because I don't want them to be deceived, when I send out a draft mix, I will put a limiter on the post of the main output here. And I will drive the input up until I am touching 0 dB. And I'm just getting maybe a tiny bit of limiting. And then that is enough for me to send that off to the client so that they can listen to the mix at that commercial kind of level. So when they compare it to something else that they would listen to in their car, they can level match it. And of course, I can level match it with reference material as well whilst I'm working away. Basically just to check my final mix, I can check it against the reference material that the client has sent me, which they usually do. I usually ask them for it. I usually say, hey, what's the kind of sound that you're after? What's the kind of vibe for this mix that you would like me to get close to? And so they send me a couple of reference tracks, and I will listen to those several times through, and I will note down what I think are the main ingredients of the sound that my client is after from their song. And then I'll try and shoot for those, try and get those to happen in their mix. So it might be certain use of particular effects, or the way the guitars are treated, or I don't know, or the overall ambience of the song, or how upfront the drums are. Those kind of things will inform me the kind of sound that they want from the mix. But so there we have it. There's a little bit of mixed bus compression. I do have a video series on compression, which if you are a subscriber to my email list, you should already have and have downloaded onto your computer, and you can watch that and refer to that at any time, advert free, because it's not on YouTube, it's on your computer, and you can use whatever media player you use to watch those videos. And there is one there on mixed bus compression. I go into a little bit more detail. However, that video is a wee bit out of date. In fact, that series is a little bit out of date. How I actually deal with compression has changed a bit, quite a bit actually, since that series was made. So I am thinking about doing a new series on compression, which will go up on YouTube, but I will make available first of all to my email subscribers, and you will have access to be able to just download those and have them on your computer, and then a short time later I will make them available on YouTube for people to watch there as well. So I hope that that has been helpful, and I'm now going to look at your questions. So let's go and take a look and see what we're talking about. And we got 20 people in here, which is awesome. Another 8 people, and we'll have broken the record, which would be awesome. Let's see. Questions. Tori Gray is here. Tori, good to see you, my friend. How are you? I hope you are well, mate. I've been watching some of your little video clips on Instagram. They are exceedingly good. So Bobby Booth is talking about fast attack and medium release. See, I suppose I didn't really cover that, did I? I said I was going to show you another way to do it, so perhaps I should do that. Let's go back to Studio One, and we'll do that, because I didn't show you my other way. I showed you my standard method, but I didn't show you my other way. So let's go over and do that. So let's get rid of the fat channel. Bye fat channel. You can do all of this, guys, with the standard Studio One compressor. Let's back the song up. Okay, I just thought I did something there that I didn't want to do. Turn off the sidechain filter. We do not need it. Okay, so if you don't have the Brit comp, you can do it with the standard fat channel compressor, or the standard settings in the fat channel compressor, or you can just use this guy. Now, with this, I would keep the ratio at 2:1. I'd set the attack to 30 milliseconds. If you're going for that kind of, the way the SSL bus compressor does compression, if you want to use those settings, set that to 30, and this one to 100, roughly. And that was my phone. I was supposed to have turned that off. Do that now. There we go. All right, so set that to roughly 100. I've set that to 103, but 100 will 101. Yes, 101 milliseconds. That 1 millisecond really makes a huge difference. As if. So set that to 100 milliseconds, set this to 30 milliseconds, and this is what the SSL kind of does in terms of attack and release. It does a whole bunch of other things in terms of tone and color, but this is what it does in terms of attack and release. Now, Bobby was saying that he uses a fast attack and a medium release. I go for a slower attack because I like my my mix bus to be. I like it to have a little bit more punch. So I go for kind of medium slow. But yeah, you could pull this back to, I don't know, 10 milliseconds. That's kind of a medium-ish attack. And then this is a kind of medium-ish, kind of medium-slow release. Yeah, you could do that. But as I say, I kind of keep that around the 30 kind of area. But let's actually try setting this on a faster attack. So let's go for like 5. Maybe 2 or 3. Let's go for 2. There we go. So that's kind of fast-ish. And then we'll play the track and we will pull the threshold back. Yeah, okay, let's compare that to the 30 milliseconds. What you do notice is the side stick snare drum really comes through quite a bit more with the slower attack than with the faster attack. And the kick drum comes through a bit more, and that electric bass has a little bit more punch. But the reverb, you notice that the reverb that I'm using on the drums, which is the Waves True Verb, that is also coming through a little bit more as well. So that's getting kind of turned up a little bit. But yeah, I hope that shows the differences a little bit there. So let's go back over here. Let's see, what other questions do we have? So also add a little tape mud, but saturate if you can. Yes, I am using the J37 tape machine, but I don't really push it too hard to start with. When I'm starting a mix, when I'm starting a mix, I don't have it on a lot. It may well be the Bop Studios, the pumping that you're experiencing might actually be OBS. I should have been watching the output on OBS. Let's see. But yeah, so I don't push the tape hard when I'm starting a mix, because I'm aware that as I start adding effects and stuff and I'm balancing the mix, I'm going to be adding gain, so that's going to be going into the tape machine, so it will naturally start to rise up and it will naturally start to saturate a little as well. But yeah, I don't tend to hit tape very hard. Some people do. I don't. Certainly at first. I may well adjust it and turn it up when I get to the end of the mix. Ken says, can you do a quick explanation of the VU meter on the J37? I think I've been using the needles wrong. I was always looking for only a little movement of the needles from resting. Well, basically, the harder you drive the tape machine, or you drive audio into the tape machine, and the more the needles are going to move, and the more you're going to get that tape kind of sound. But yeah, the VU meters, I think, are calibrated to minus 18, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think 0 dB is minus 18, I think. It would be worth somebody going to check that to see if I'm right or wrong about that. But I think that's what it is. Bob Studio says, pumping too much. Yeah, I was exaggerating it a little bit so you could actually hear what's going on. But yeah, I only tap the compressor. I don't let it do very much more than 1.5 dB. After that, it's too much. But as I say, this is really, the song that we're looking at there is really just a test song that I use. I haven't mixed it or balanced it or anything. I've just chucked up the faders, and I've just been testing a few things lately with Studio One 4.5.2. So yeah, that's why that's there. So yeah, nothing is really mixed or balanced. Bobby Booth says, heard the difference, so we'll be changing things. Okay, cool. Yeah. I suppose it depends upon the style of music, really, that you're working in. If you're working in rock music, maybe you want maybe you want some more punch from your mix bus, in which case go for a slower attack. I don't know. Kind of depends. Depends upon what you're trying to achieve from your mix bus. As I say, I like a slower attack because I like my music to be have a little bit more punch, and I like to give the drums a little bit more of a chance to be forward in the mix. Even if I'm working on jazz stuff, and that's mostly what I do is I work on jazz stuff. And so I like the drums to be able to just push forward a little bit, particularly the snare drum and the upright bass or the electric bass, whichever it is in the particular tune I'm working on. I like them to be able to pop through nicely. David says, go get some cough drops. You know what? I've been using cough medicine a lot lately, and for all the good it does. Unfortunately, my experience with cough medicine is that it actually makes your cough worse rather than better in the short term. So, when you start using it, it starts making you cough more, and I suppose the end game is that the more you cough, the more you clear out the infection, and then eventually it goes. But whether it has that much medical benefit, I'm not entirely convinced. Other than, I guess, the pharmaceutical companies make money out of the fact that you cough more, which makes you buy more of their product, and so on and so forth. I don't know. So, yeah. So, there we go, folks. I may make this a short one tonight because of my cough, and I'm not wanting to completely destroy my voice because I have a busy day tomorrow. Mike Neighbor of Peace Valley Audio is here, and he says, I always use a medium slower attack with a medium faster release using the Slate FG Mu. That is my go-to for mix bus compression. Wow. Excuse me. Yes, when I used the Slate stuff, that was definitely mine. I used the FG Mu. David S.J., thank you so much for the $10 donation. I appreciate that. Go get some cough drops, he says. Thank you so much. Yeah, cough meds, I'm not 100% convinced on them. But I really do appreciate that very, very much. $10 is super helpful. Yes, when I used the Slate bundle, the FG Mu was always my go-to for mixed bus compression for the same reason that that Mike is giving there. But since I don't use it anymore, I have to find alternatives. And really, I've gone back to what I did before, which was I always used some kind of SSL-style bus compressor. Bob says, in my day, codeine was the bomb. Yes, indeed, codeine rocks. But it can be just a teensy bit addictive. So to be honest, I am Scottish, so I'm tough. I'm hard as nails. Which basically means it takes a lot to floor me. And it takes a lot to make me go and get pain meds. So, case in point, short story here, folks. If you're not that interested in this short story, that's okay. I had an infection in my left leg a few years back, about 5 or 6 years ago. The infection is called cellulitis, and it basically meant that my leg swelled up. It was an infection in the subcutaneous tissue of my skin, and it made my leg swell up, and the pain was phenomenal. I couldn't bear weight on my leg. Just touching my leg made me scream, pretty much. And it was like that for, I don't know, about 3 weeks maybe. I went to the hospital eventually, and they gave me some pretty awesome and pretty intensive pain relief. But, I spent as little time using those pain meds as possible because basically I would become a complete space cadet. I'd be sat there on my bed because I couldn't really move because I couldn't bear any weight. And I'd just be like, on these pain meds, which nobody wants to, well, you have now seen me do that, but nobody really wants to see me go, but that's really what happened with the cellulitis. Turns out that the cellulitis thing might be related to an autoimmune condition that I have. I have several autoimmune conditions, and this is one of them. So it can just come back at any time. So who knows? But there you go. That's me in pain relief. I try and get away from using it if I can. But going back to compression, Mike says, I only use a stock compressor when I want uncolored compression. I'll use it in serial compression chains. Good idea. LA2A in conjunction with the stock one. That's a great idea. Using a chain of the native Studio One compressors is a great idea. If you really want your vocals to come through nicely and for every sound, every syllable, every note of the voice to really come through and be heard, serial compression is the way to go. Absolutely. And I certainly used to just... what I would do, I'll go back to Studio One and I'll show you rather than telling you, because it is just a lot easier for me to do that. Yeah, where's my mouse pointer gone? There it is. So what I used to do, if we imagine for the moment that this Rhodes channel here is my vocal, it isn't, but if we imagine that it was, I would grab a compressor, pull it in, dial in some compression. Let's dial in some imaginary compression. Let's say there, 30 milliseconds attack, 50 milliseconds release. That's fine. And then what I would do is I would copy that. I'd close that. I'd grab another compressor. Same deal. Oh, I didn't want to do any of that. Oh my gosh. Of course, all of that lot is grouped. I'd forgotten about that. Let's go and take all of those away. There we go. I'd forgotten that all of those were grouped. That was bad. Let's turn the group off. All right, let's try that again, shall we? Let's turn that off. Let's paste those settings there because we copied and pasted them. Let's collapse that. And then let's bring another one exactly the same in. And we'll paste those settings there as well. And that's what I would do. I would literally have exactly the same compression settings. And so I'd be looking on the first one here to only get maybe a couple of dB. And then on this one, I would also want to be only doing 2 or 3 dB of compression. Maybe 3 dB on the first one and 3 dB on the second one. And that gives you a total of 6 dB of compression, but over 2 compressors. And that means instead of having one compressor doing a lot of work, you have 2 compressors doing a little bit of work each. They're sharing the load. And that way you get nice, smooth compression that nobody really hears, but it does the job that you want. You don't hear it go... You know how it is when you can hear that a vocal has been compressed, and you kind of like... My instinctive reaction to too much compression on a vocal is I literally want to duck. It's weird. I don't know why I do it. But that's the kind of effect that too much compression has on me. I can hear the compressor slamming down on the audio, and I don't like it. So if you have a couple of compressors doing that, then doing a little bit of compression each, then you end up with something far more smooth and far less obvious and overt. Unless overt is what you're going for, you don't really want that. So there. So I hope that has helped kind of deal with that. Let's see. Bobby says, me too, Mike. Bob Studios says that he runs 1 or 2 compressors on my vocals. Yes. David SJ says, I think it's going to be a monthly subscription like Slate users. At least that's what Adam from Hot Pole Studios thinks. I think he might be right. It might well be that they are going to come up with their own version of what Slate Digital does, a monthly subscription, and you get access to everything. I think is what will happen. or an annual subscription or something like that. But if they're going to do it, I would think that they would probably have to, do it iLok free, I think, because iLok is shite. There we go. There's one for the swear jug. But hey, this is my channel, not Johnny's. I don't mind quite so much. But they're also going to have to do it for cheaper. To be honest, I think they're going to have to do it for cheaper. David SJ says, yeah, I use the iLok for my SoftTube bundle and it sucks. Yes, the iLok is suck. It's awful. Mike says, I'm okay with subscription as long as they don't use iLok security. iLok is stupid. It really is stupid. Here's my little iLok device. And it really is stupid. I mean, people are going to pirate, unfortunately. And that sucks. But you have to find another way around it that isn't so clumsy and clunky, to be honest. There has to be a better way than this, which takes up a USB port. I mean, how annoying is that when a lot of computers have limited USB ports? You really don't want this taking up another USB port just so that you can run your plugins. Now, I get that, that this enables me to go from one studio to another and still use my plugins that are licensed on this little guy, and I can just plug it into that computer, and hey presto, there's all my Slate stuff, or there's all my SoftTube stuff, or whatever. Yeah, I get that. It's transferable. It's easy. But really, there's got to be an easier way, frankly. So yeah, that's my little bugbear with the iLok. And they're not exactly reliable. Martin says, hey Martin, good to see you. Can the same principle for serial compression work with limiters as well? Probably. You have to bear in mind though that limiters are essentially fundamentally a high ratio compressor. Basically it's infinity to 1 or at least 40 to 1. So if you're stacking limiters that have a 40 to 1 ratio, then you're stacking heavy compression. I'm not necessarily entirely convinced of a use case for stacking limiters, but I guess you could. I think probably what I would say there, Mike, is try it, experiment with it, and see what happens. See what it does. You might go, yeah, okay, that's just too much. So, yeah, maybe. Tori is talking to Mike and said, looks like they're sticking with their plugin manager. They've recently updated it to 1.2. I think they may have another coming after they release their new stuff. Probably. I got an email, and apparently if you are a Plugin Alliance subscriber to their newsletter, and you use their plugins and you have the Plugin Alliance manager and all of that, you will be getting 2 emails tomorrow, I believe, that give you a couple of different options. So, be interesting to see what happens. Let's see. Yes, you can buy the Slate Digital ones too. Yeah. Yeah, you can buy the individual Slate Digital plugins. Yeah, but you know what? They're really expensive. To buy them individually, they're really expensive. For what they are. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to slate. The Slate plugins are fantastic. If you have a computer that can handle them, they are awesome. They are amazing. They really, really are. And they really are worth the $14 a month you pay per month to have them. If your system can handle it and your computer is robust enough to be able to use them, then they can be amazing. If not, you're going to struggle. And I don't know. I think some of us are in the boat where we would possibly struggle. I certainly am. I've had Slate for a couple of years, and I've cancelled on them, to be honest, because it's not just that my machine won't handle them. my machine can at a push, but here's the thing. Every time I try and update my plugin bundle, my everything bundle, something always goes wrong. And I've talked it through with Stephen Slate himself. He and I have emailed back and forth. We've chatted on Skype. I've spoken to the guy in person, and I just couldn't. Every time something new was added to the bundle, I couldn't get that new thing added to the bundle without a bunch of license problems. I don't know what the issue was. So I've had to drop them because I can't really afford to be paying for plugins that I cannot use. I'm not made of money, unfortunately. Wish I was, but I'm not. So Bobby says, I dropped Slate. It took too long to load up. Yeah, that's the other thing. If you have a mix with a load of Slate plugins, it takes ages for the song to load up. It really does. And when I'm trying to shoot a video or I'm trying to do a live stream for you guys, no can do. I mean, already I think I'm having issues where my computer is overheating a little bit, which is not too great. Yeah, my CPU temperature is up at 82 degrees right now. So I don't know why that's happening at the moment, other than OBS is probably taking up most of my processing power. So I don't know. Let's give that a tap. See if that helps. Sorry, you guys, you can't see what I'm doing. But yeah, it's up quite high. So, and I found that last stream actually, my computer was up at 85 degrees. I don't know what the hottest temperature it will go to before it starts going and shutting itself down on me. But it's only been the last couple of streams that it's done this, so I don't know why it's doing it. But I would hate it to be the reason why I have to stop streaming. So I don't know. Anyway, it is now 10 to 1 in the morning here. We've got about 9 minutes to go. The thing I'm going to close right now is I'm going to close Studio One and buy me back some resources a little bit. I'm sure that will help a bit. And we'll just talk through questions. We'll verbally answer questions is what we'll do. So we got 20, 22, 21 people here. We haven't broken the record, unfortunately. It would have been nice if we could have, but we haven't. If you are here and you have not posted something in the chat, then please do, by all means, post a question in the chat, and I'll see what we can do in these last 8 minutes or so to answer your question. Bobby says, the IK multimedia tapes use a lot of CPU. On my system, one tape uses 30%. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. I don't have those at all. Mike says, my computer does better with Slate Digital than most of the Waves stuff. The Waves Abbey Road collection is ridiculous on CPU. I've heard that several times, actually, from several different people. Yeah. They are pretty intensive. For it, well, even excuse me, even the SSL channel strips, actually, if you're using a lot of those, it will start to eat into your CPU. I have noticed that. David says it's probably throttling already at 80 plus. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it maxes out at, but I don't want to find out. It's dropping now. It's under 80 degrees. It's dropped down to about 77 or something. The fan is working. It's doing its thing. It could just well be that using OBS just makes it run a little on the hotter side than when it's not using OBS. So it could be something to do with that. Bob Studios has an excellent point. He says, do hit the like button, please. And he's absolutely right. We have 13 likes and about 20 or so people here. So if I could get the same number of likes as viewers, that would be awesome. Let's see. Mineweek says, probably because of all that 3D nonsense, which isn't really important to mixing sound. Too bad, though, as it would be a great add-on. Oh, yes, you're talking about the new Studio 3 thing. Yeah. I saw Dave demoing that, actually. I think it was last night. It's weird, man. That head tracker thing is weird. I'm not convinced by it either, but hey. Mike says, I'm not talking about the new one. I'm referring to the plate reverb and the TG12345 channel strip in particular. I don't mix on headphones, so that new one doesn't interest me at all. Yeah, I don't mix on headphones either, except when I'm doing these shows. This is the only time I mix on headphones. But I do check my mixes on headphones. David says the processor starts slowing itself down at 80 plus to try cool itself back down. Oh, there you go. Okay, that helps a lot. Martin says, I recently tried using a combination of MJUC presets for drums, open clean room, and clean enhanced overheads through a send bus. Amazing results. Yet the MJUC is an awesome compressor. I have a video on that. It's about 37 minutes of me basically playing with it because I had only just got it. And I basically lost track of time with what I was having so much fun with it. So let's see what else we got. Bob Kidd is here. Hello, Bob. And he says, what do you think about the Waves Abbey Road plugin for mixing with headphones? Yeah, we were just talking about that. I don't have it. I don't think I could possibly afford it. But having watched Dave Vignola's stream last night when he was using it, I don't really know what to make of it, to be honest. I mean, I don't know what the experience was like for him in his headphones, whether it really sounded like the Studio 3 Studio. I don't know. But certainly one thing I did know was that with the head tracker, when he turned his head away, the mix was lopsided because it would move the mix would orientate itself around where he had his head positioned, which is clever. But I'm not convinced on how useful that is in general. If you're in a position where you have no other option but to mix on headphones, then I think maybe it probably is a good thing. It's probably really useful. Now I have a good-sized and well-treated room, so I don't really need to use headphones. And, you know, my kids are 7 and 9 now. So maybe in the earlier days when my kids were very young, I used headphones more. But, I mean, these guys that I'm using now, these are the PreSonus HE7s. They're really good for mixing. So these are the ones that I use. I'm not really sure I want the Abbey Road Studio 3 sound in my ears, and then I take my headphones off, and it sounds completely different because my room is different to this Studio 3. The interesting thing is, I've actually been in the Abbey Road Studio 3. I have actually been there. I was there, oh gosh, when would it be now? 2001, 2002? Something like that. 2000, 2001 or 2. I can't remember which of those years, but I was there because I was in the orchestra for a film score. I do those, or at least I did those quite a lot. I played on a lot of film scores. Nowadays, I don't do that quite so much. If I do, I go to another studio. I don't work from here to do film scores. I go and I'm based in another studio in Glasgow or in Edinburgh, or if really, really necessary and they are prepared to pay for it, I will go down to London and I'll go down to Abbey Road and work there if necessary. But most of the time, no. I was only down in Abbey Road doing those kind of things because I actually lived in London for 12 years. And so I worked in some of the big studios there, Abbey Road and Angel in particular. Those are the two major studios in London that I worked in, either as a session musician or an engineer or an assistant, when I was working my way through, the professional audio world, I guess you could call it, getting my start, because I started professionally in 1999. So good place to go is Abbey Road to go and learn the tricks of the trade. And they have awesome consoles there, just about every type of console you could possibly imagine. So there you go. Tori Gray says, it won't make you mix better, I can tell you that much. If you suck or your sound selection sucks, it's still going to suck when you print your audio out. Yes. I'm inclined to agree with that. Even if you have a wonderful sounding room, if you are early in your mixing career, you're going to suck. Everybody sucks at first. Your first bunch of mixes are going to sound awful, but that's what happens when you're learning. It's like playing any sport. At first you suck at it, but you get better because you train and you practice and you work and you learn from other people. And eventually you gain some mastery over the the skills you need to learn to mix, like EQ and compression and those fun things. I often equate mixing to playing drums, because when you're playing drums, you're working all four of your limbs. A lot of it is about coordination, but it's also about balance, achieving balance between your feet and your hands that is good. But you also need to be able to play in time. You need to create music, respond musically to the songs that you're playing. You need to have some command of rudiments, not always necessary for some styles of music, but you certainly need to know how to groove and how to play the band, how to play the song. Those kind of skills are necessary as a drummer. But you know what? For the first few years, you suck. I know, because I've been playing drums for 40 years. And when I was a kid and I was just starting out, I sucked as well. In fact, when I first played with my first gig, my first professional gig, when I was a kid, I sucked. But I got better. And, now, I'm able to sight read a drum chart for a big band. I'm able to play military. I'm able to do all sorts of things. But, the only way you get to that level is through a lot of practice and a lot of hard work. If you want to get good at mixing, practice. Get stems. Get stems from any way you can get them. Get them into your system. Work. Every day, preferably. At least churn out a mix every week. Finish a mix every week. Start a mix on Monday and aim to finish it by Sunday. And then you'll get faster and, you'll get to a point where you're churning out 5 or 6 mixes a week. And then, work that out over the course of a year. That's 300 and something mixes in a year. You're definitely going to be better at the 360th mix than at mix number 3. Mix number 3, you'll be better than mix number 1. So, and you learn, yes, exactly. Tori Gray is dead right. You learn your monitors as well. Yes, you learn how your room sounds. You learn how your speakers sound. You learn how to get what you want to come out of the speakers. You get, you learn how to command what comes out of the speakers. So, yeah, Bob Kidd says, I too have reservations, including cost, about Studio 3. Yes. Let's see. Mike says, I mix metal when my neighbors piss me off. You know what I do when my neighbors annoy me? Actually, I have very, very good neighbors, so I'm not going to complain too terribly much. But when my neighbors, not my immediate neighbors, but the ones across the way over there, when they start playing their drum and bass, I start playing my John Coltrane records. I'll play Giant Steps. I will play the My Favorite Things record, and I will crank that volume. And I usually win. Or I'll play Steely Dan, or I'll play, one record to really annoy your neighbors, if you want to shut them up, is to play Miles Davis's Bitches Brew. Go and get that record, even if you don't like that music. Go and get it just so you can play it loud, because it's a great record to play loud. And it's the Miles Davis records. Miles was really inspired by Jimi Hendrix, which is interesting because Jimmy was really inspired by Miles Davis and John Coltrane. So, round about that, late 1960s period, they were kind of influencing each other. And so the Miles Davis Bitches Brew record it's a rock record with jazz chops, basically. So there we go. Learning, ain't that the purpose of life? Absolutely. Anybody that stops learning, if you think, hey, I've done it all, I've learned it all, I now have complete mastery over all these things, you will instantly suck. Trust me. As soon as you think you've achieved something, yeah, it's like the moment you say, I am humble. I am such a humble person. I have grasped humility. As soon as you start doing that, you're in trouble, because you have just become the proudest person on the planet. Low ends with the final question of the evening, and he says, quick one, if I set the tempo on the song page, how can I change it during the session? You can automate the tempo track. If you want the song to be faster or slower, you can certainly do it there, is what I would say. Or if you decide, hey, this tempo is too slow for this particular song, then just, go down to where the tempo is in the transport bar, change it there. But just bear in mind, you'll need to set everything to follow, to time stretch, and then everything will time stretch to the new tempo, including your audio channels, not just your MIDI. All right, so there you go. I hope that all helps. And that, my dear friends, is pretty much it. And we are going to call it a night there. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for the super chat donation from David. I had to go and check to remind myself who that was. And I'm going to go and rest now because my voice is starting to break up and I'm getting very tired. So thank you guys, and I will see you on Wednesday at Songwriting Simplified on Jonny's channel. But also keep watch over my channel this week because I'm going to start churning out some videos. I'm hoping that my cough is going to clear up over the course of the next couple of days. And then hopefully Thursday, Friday, you'll start to see some videos coming out. I've got a list of about a dozen videos that I want to get out over the course of the next few weeks. So keep an eye on that. Whole bunch of different subjects. So I will see you. Hang on just a second. I need to go do something. Bear with me just a sec. I didn't want to do that. That's one thing I did not want to do. Sorry about that. I'll see you next week, folks. Good night. That was bad.